What's up, guys? How you doing? Bonnie here. So we've done the abilities for the intermediate guide. Now we're going to move on to items, and with items I'm just going to tell you a little bit about, well, I'm going to make you understand more kind of the order and how powerful each item is depending on the level. So let's get into it. Sphere of Vitality, not talking about it. Healing Amplifier, unless you're playing healer, we're not really talking about it. And maybe the healer type of thing, like stuff information wise, is gonna come like later on because it's not majorly played and you can't really carry with the healer like you would with damage. Energy Amplifier. Energy Amplifier is very overlooked. Not a lot of people play with it. Well, some people have started playing with it. But this is very good when it comes to like when you're playing dash. So let's say you're playing shotgun, you're playing hand cannon, and you're jungling. This is very good because it allows you to have incredible movement speed when it comes to if you're using the blink dash ability. But this should only be picked if one, you're very ahead, so that means that your lobby isn't that really tough, that doesn't have that like those tough like 1v1s, like 1v2s, like you generally can pick enemies like quite easily, like if you're playing, for example, dash shotgun, dash hand cannon, because you got to think about that. If you're spending the gold on mana, on energy regeneration, that means what? You're not spending gold towards either damage or resistances. So first of all, you got to be very confident in your ability, in your aim, and into picking those favorable scenarios of, in terms of like fights, that you would not go in with like low HP. Like you got to know and have the experience that you know your damage very, very well, and you know that you can essentially win that specific fight or specific fights whenever you're going for this. And this is obviously very good when it comes to like abilities, like towards more like late game, if you're playing like toxic grenade with incendiary rounds in like healer station, for example. Like if you were, because obviously we have 2 energy per second as like passive wise, so if you use all those 3, which is obviously over like that's close to 200, well, 175 mana, then the toxic grenade and let's say incendiary rounds are going to come off cooldown. Whenever they're going to come off cooldown, if you don't have mana regen items, you're not going to have the enough energy in order to use those 2 abilities when they come off cooldown. So that's where energy regen comes into play. But there's 2 ways that you can do this. You can get energy regen after resistances later on if the game is longer, or you can get energy regen early on in order to continue the snowball and the lead that you have when you're playing, for example, dash shotgun or dash hand cannon. Incoming heal boost, we're not going to talk about it. Weapon damage, bread and butter, you know what I mean. Pretty much this is the bread and butter for any weapon. You want to go for this 99% of the cases. Same with quantum trigger. You want to go through with this in 99% of the cases. There are some arguments that can be made that you would prioritize ability damage over crit. For example, if you're playing an LMG, because LMG has a low crit multiplier. So if you're running LMG with incendiary round and toxic grenade or like damage boost, anyway, that you're running incendiary rounds, an argument can be made that, and I can make that argument as well, because I like to go ability damage as opposed to crit for LMG. But other than the LMG, whenever you are playing any other weapon, basically, or you just go for the crit chance, which is combined obviously very well with the weapon increased damage. Amplify ability damage, the bread and butter, and generally you only pick this if you have abilities, obviously. So this um, amplify ability damage basically amplifies the damage for like toxic grenade, rocket strike, grenade, incendiary rounds, turret, flame burst grenade, and nuke. So if you're running those in your build, yes, you'd get this. And generally, depending on the game as well, if you're ahead, for example, and you're able to maintain kind of your lead, you'd obviously go, for example, the two items. You'd go for the quantum trigger plus the weapon capacitor, like damage increase and crit, and then your third item is going to be the ability amplify damage. If you're playing like multiple abilities that do damage, so in a case where you would play like SMG with incendiary rounds and like damage boost, for example, and 1v1s are kind of close, so you're not able to just like go all over the map and like kill everybody, and the players are more so your skill level or even better, you wouldn't go for this, because 30% ability damage at level 3 is not worth more than, for example, 150 HP, you know? Reload speed, just overrated in my opinion. I don't really use reload speed anymore on anything, basically. There can be an argument made that if you're split pushing with towers, you would go for load speed. The best kind of weapons that this would be pairing up well with is the healing gun and the grenade launcher. But I personally, well, apart from the healing gun, which is extremely good on, there is just way better choices when it comes to, like, for example, grenade launcher. And I would only go for this if, I don't know, you're killing everybody and the opponents don't really have a chance, and then you just want to kind of snowball your lead anyway. But then there is an argument can be made that if you have more resistances, you can stay longer, and then they would just it just overpower the reload speed. So I'm not really a fan anymore of the reload speed. If you've been copying the beginner guide where I've been putting reload speed in there, just don't use it. You have way better options. Weapon reflect damage, stay away from this, not really worth the money. As we can see, what it says is at level 3, 15% the damage that you receive is redirected back to the, well, essentially reflected back to the opponent. So what this means is if the opponent damages you for 100, then you'll just reflect back 15 damage out of that 100 damage that you've took, which it's not worth the gold unless you're playing healer and you want to maximize in your build every resistance possible. You just don't go for this at all. Tank items, cybernetic enhancement level 1, level 2, level 3, plus 50 50 50 HP. Very good. The thing with health, we got to understand what health means and what is good at, because I feel like people are just buying this for kind of the sake of it. And let's break it down. So health, what is health good for? Well, health is very good against abilities that do a lot of damage. So for example, like nuclear, like rocket strike, for example. Because let's think about it. At level 3, yeah, and a nuclear does 150 damage. Basically, at level 3, you have 150 HP over your 300 existing, so therefore you have 450 HP, therefore you're cancelling out a nuke with 150 HP. What else is HP good for? HP is very good at 1v1s, yeah, because an extra 50 HP on top of your 300 health, that is, what is it, 10%, it's almost 15% extra HP for 100, well, 1,000 gold, and then 1,250, and then 1,500. So HP, if they have nukes, and then if they have, if you have tough 1v1s. Regen, the only good thing about regen is, one, if you're jungling, two, if you're if you're finding yourself that you're staying long on the map, and then you're obviously at low HP well, you're sitting under your full HP, because if you're full HP all the time, then the health per second obviously loses value because you're already full HP. This is very good at level 1 because for a thousand credits you buy and then you get plus 2 HP per second every second. This value drops down significantly because then at level 2 for 1250 gold, then you only get 1 HP extra per second, and then obviously at level 3 for 1500 gold you get 1 HP extra per second, which is not that great. Like for 2750 gold to get to level 3 from level 1, you get 2 HP per second. So like if we were to break it down, and then by the moment that you get into a fight and then your HP starts dropping, in order for this to be better than basically health, for example, or like damage reduction, the point is, this is not very good for 1v1s. This is very good for extended period of fighting slash poking. So that what by poking means, or like trading, what I mean by that is whenever you're having an exchange of fire with the enemy, you take some HP of the enemy, and then he takes some HP of you, because you have regen that is highly beneficial, because then you regenerate, he doesn't, then you come after a while, if you meet with the same opponent or another opponent, you've regenerated more than, for example, 50 health would have provided you. So, but then again, this is very good only at level 2, especially like early to mid game. Obviously, if you have the money and then you're finding yourself mega overextended all the time, then yeah, there can be an argument that you can get this to level 3. But then again, if you're finding yourself having these extended fights and staying long on like the lanes and fighting all the time, then that's the place for a healing station. And then a healing station will heal you up full HP from 0 in like 10 seconds. So very good for jungling as well. Energy expansion, extremely good. What this does basically is it allows you to cast all your abilities in the same time. So if you have, for example, Toxic Grenade, Rocket Strike, and then Ultimate Nuke, so we got 75 mana plus 60 mana, 135 plus 40 mana, that's 106, it's 175 energy required in order for you to cast all the abilities in the same time. And in order for you to do the maximum damage as fast as possible, let's say whenever the enemies are pushing and there's like 2 or 3 of them, obviously you want to do as much damage and as much AoE damage as possible, so therefore you have to have energy expansion in order to cast all your abilities in the same time. So preferably, I mean preferably level 3, because at level 3 you get 100 extra, so therefore you get up to the necessary mana to cast all 3 in the same time. And then if you're running like multiple combinations, including an ultimate, then you can also cast those in the same time because you have energy expansion. The only time that you would not really get energy expansion is if you're running kind of low mana ability. Well, the only time you're not going to get energy expansion to level 3, for example, is if you're running low cost like mana ability. So if you're running incendiary rounds with shield, so that's 70 mana, no, that's 80 mana, sorry, no, 70 mana, because that's 30, so 70 mana plus an ultimate, let's say a healing station, which is 75 mana, then that is going to be, what, 70 145 mana, so you'd get level 2 energy expansion, or like, even a level 1 would be fine, because at level 1, you're going to have plus 25 energy, so from 100, you're going to go up to 100 to 125, and let's say a fight breaks out, you're a 1v1 with an opponent or whatever, you use incendiary rounds, you use shield, and then you have 30 mana left. You need, obviously, 45 mana extra for healing station, but you got to remember that you're fighting for a while with the enemy, so unless you're like fighting full on, or like let's say you've won the fight and you've killed your opponent by your like low HP, as you've been fighting, those seconds have been going and then your mana has been regenerating, therefore you'd have enough mana for a healing station. But if obviously if you're finding yourself in situations where like you're into a 1v2 situation, or like the person that you're looking to fight for a 1v1 is extremely strong, and the fight is very, very close, obviously the ultimate is going to make the difference. So therefore you would need to have energy expansion at level 2 in order to cast all those abilities I've just mentioned here, if you were to run this combination. Fast recharge, that's kind of the exact same thing as the energy amplifier. It again is very good. The only time that you'd kind of get this over that is if, for example, you already got energy amplifier, and then you go back and you have, for example, 1000 gold instead of 1250, enough for level 2 of this. So therefore you'd get that if mana is an issue, and then yeah, basically if mana is an issue. So obviously every single time we go to base, we want to be as strong as possible. Therefore we want to take items. So if in your build you're needing more energy, let's say again in a shotgun slash hand cannon, let's say dash build, you always need energy. Therefore, if you are in a situation where mana regen is next in line and not for you to buy, and you've already bought energy amplifier, for example, then if you have 1000 gold or less than 1250 in order to get level 2 here, then you would go for the fast recharge, because that will make a big difference, because you're going for both anyway, because you can never have enough energy with the dash build. Nanobot infusion. Nanobot infusion is extremely good if you're literally killing everybody. So that means that you're winning most of the 1v2s, 1v3s. Well, let's say you're winning most of the 1v2. Well, let's say there's situations that you're going for those fights that will be 1v2 plus onwards, so 1v2, 1v3, 1v4, 1v5, etc, etc, and then you're finding yourself that for example, after the 1v2 you've killed people, then you're left with, for example, 50 HP. So if you were to have this at level 3, for example, then after you kill the first person, you'd heal for plus 80, and then after you kill the second person, you'd heal for another 80. Therefore, you'd go for you'd heal up to 160. Therefore, plus the 50 HP that you've been left with, instead of you having 50 HP, you have 210 for the next fight. But I do not recommend for you to go for this option, because at the current time you guys are still intermediate. Therefore, most likely you're not going to have games where you are literally killing everybody, because this is what it's good at. It's good at continuous killing and prolonging the time that you stay on lane, and you wouldn't get it early on anyway, because you prioritize the damage and resistances over this anyway. But there is cases where I take it as either like the 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th item if the games are to that point where I just like kill people non-stop. Enhanced armor is very, very good. The thing is, enhanced armor is not really better than health, but there can be an argument made that enhanced armor combined with healing regen is better, because obviously the longer you take damage, the more the damage reduction is better, essentially. Because if you're not finding yourself that you're healing past the certain point that you have without the item that gives you HP, so let's say that you've stayed on lane for like 2-3 minutes or something like that, and then you've never been at full HP at 300 health. Therefore, if you've never been at 300 HP, this health becomes useless in comparison to this, because obviously you're not benefiting for the 50 HP throughout the whole time that you've been out on the lane. So therefore, this becomes stronger than health, and this is better generally if you're going for resistances next in line. So after you've taken the damage, and for example, in your build you're going to have health and this regardless in almost any games. So therefore, if you're at level 2 health, for example, obviously for level 3 is 1500 gold, and then you find yourself in a situation where you had to go base and you've not got that 1500 gold, well, since enhanced armor is next in line and you don't have 1500 gold for level 3 health, therefore obviously you'd go for the enhanced armor at level 1 or level 2 depending what stage you're at. But you would go for something else because you can't follow a build 100% because there is X and Y, the X, Y, and Z scenarios where you want to have the necessary gold, the X amount of gold. So we'll say in this case again 1500 gold to upgrade my level 3, but then for an unforeseen scenario, or like a scenario breaks out that it sends you back to base without having 1500 gold, therefore you want to buy something else that is next in line because you want to spend that gold in order for you to be stronger. So you wouldn't just go out again out of base because you need like 100 gold for level 3, because you'd essentially be losing time. By the time that you travel from base to the point that you're gonna get XYZ gold, well, however much gold, then recalling back to base, so that's another 7 seconds, then buying the item and then walking back, then you've wasted suddenly like over 30 seconds for nothing. So you'd essentially go for that because it's next in line anyway in your build path. Quantum armor, it's good. You just build it late in the game. So like after you've got your regen, your health, after you got like for example energy expansion. But if you're running a build, for example, that's not energy hungry, and then you need more resistances because the enemy is running like incendiary rounds, toxic grenades, and like nukes especially, then again, yes, you would get quantum armor towards level 3. Again, if you're running a build that is not energy hungry, because if you're running a build that is energy hungry, it's much more worth to have that energy in order to cast that additional ability or like ultimate or do that combo, than having 20% reduced from like grenades and ability damage. But if you're not, and they're running nukes and a lot of that and a lot of abilities, and you've already done health, enhanced armor, and healing per second, let's not talk about that, because if they have, we'll talk about it next. But if you have those, and that's what we're going to be talking about next, then you'd go for quantum armor if the game is extremely late. Deflector helmet, extremely powerful, especially against those turbo hand cannoners, snipers, lasers that keep headshotting you, and then you call them hackers. I hope nobody that's watching this video is doing that, because you should know better by now. But if anybody of those people that has called people hackers has stumbled upon this video, and then most likely the person is running a hand cannon. But again, it is very, very good against sniper, hand cannon, and laser. You want to get this. The reason is because obviously, like for example, when you're versing a hand cannon has got very big crit multiplier for headshot essentially. So that means the headshot damage is extremely big. Therefore, you want to mitigate that, especially when you're playing against a very good player, which is going to hit you most of the time. So in that specific case, what you want to be running is, you want to be running health and deflector helmet. You want to be running health, deflector helmet, plus enhanced armor, because that's going to make you tanky, that's going to reduce incoming damage overall, and that is going to reduce incoming headshot bonus damage, which is, by level 3, it's 60%, which is a lot. And I'll buy this even early. Like if I'm playing against somebody that's obviously really good with a hand cannon, and I find myself that he's like headshotting me because I've like had 1 or 2 fights with him, I'm just gonna get this straight away, because at level 1 is 30%. That is reducing that bonus incoming damage. So you get the point. And this shield enhancements, don't worry about it, don't get it. You've got way other better things in here. So again, the golden rule when it comes to itemization is, you need to know, and you can refer to whenever you're choosing a build to go towards. So let's say you're going pulse rifle, toxic grenade, with incendiary rounds and nuclear. So what does that build require in order for it to work really well? Well, we already know that pulse rifle is an extremely hard weapon to use, but it also has a lot of damage if you um, essentially aim well. But the power of that build comes from the free abilities that does damage. So we've got toxic grenade, we've got incendiary round, and then we've got nuclear. So therefore, what that build requires is ability damage uh, and like energy expansion, because most of the time whenever you're going to be fighting somebody, you need all three abilities, or whenever you're going to be pushed in, or like whenever you want to put pressure. Obviously, if you're using three abilities rather than two, is way more beneficial. And because you're obviously using abilities, you want amplify damage. So this is going to be in your build path, ability damage and in energy expansion. But we also can't neglect the most important item in the game, which is obviously the increased weapon damage. So that has to be obviously your core. And then obviously crit goes really well with pulse rifle as well. So what would you do in this situation? Well, depending on the game, most of 99% of the time, the build is going to be like this. It's going to be this, this, this. Well, actually, it's going to be this, energy expansion, and ability amplify damage. So it's going to be this, and this. Why? Why is this different? It's because you have to acknowledge the way that the enemy players are playing. So why, for example, you'd go or you go this, and this first, as opposed to damage, crit, and then build the amplified damages. You would want to go this whenever you need the mana in order for you to cast all three abilities. So again, if we're playing Toxic Grenade, Incendiary Rounds plus Nuke, pardon me, you need, and the enemy the enemy's tendencies are that they're stacked most of the time on top of each other, pushing a side or a specific tower. Well, what does that mean? Then that means that you have potential to AoE them down. So therefore, you would be going in your build path, you'd be going for a nuke. And in order for you to cast the incendiary rounds, toxic grenade, and nuke, you would need energy expansion. Yeah? So your build path is going to be this, Some of the times it could be either weapon damage and energy expansion in order for you to cast the ability, but most likely, like in a game from like zero, like for everybody starting from like minute zero, you'd go for crit, weapon damage, crit, energy expansion, because you're gonna have nuke. If again the enemy's tendencies are to stay stacked on top of each other, and there's multiple people stacked, and you need to kill them very, very quickly. If you have only like two people and then all they need is like continuous applied pressure, then you wouldn't go for the nuke. You would save that 2000 gold, and then you'd go for weapon damage, crit, and then you'd go full ability amplify damage, because the enemy's tendencies are not for multiple people to be stacked on top of each other. You don't have to kill them like very, very quickly, because they don't have yet like healing stations, for example. All you need to do is just have continuous applied pressure and wave clear very, very quickly. So therefore, you'd be going for the ability damage next. And then, because in your build path with a pulse rifle is very, very good to have a nuke, then after that, you'll be going for the energy expansion. So this is how you have to think about this. Now, obviously, if you're finding yourself in situations where you have enough damage to wave clear, you have enough damage to pressure, but there is like a hand cannon player like keeps killing you non-stop or whatever, well, what would you be doing? Well, you'd go for the weapon damage, you would go for the crit, and then you would go for a defensive. Well, if you're staying continuously on a lane for multiple like a long period of time, then it's going to be the health regen level 1. That's it. And then you're moving on towards the damage reduction. So you'd either be going for health if you're playing against like a turbo hand cannon aimer, or you'd be going for the health damage reduction in order for you to survive longer. Because what's the weakness of hand cannon? Well, most of the time they're not going to have enough healing in order to deal with continuous pressure, so they like to be in and out. So if you're able to apply continuous pressure because you have abilities that does damage, most of the time a hand cannon player would not, because they prioritize like moving quickly around the map in order to get kills, especially the good players. You'd want to have obviously as much pressure as possible, but you also want to survive that encounter. So you'd not get a nuke, you'd just get like a toxic grenade incendiary round, you'd get your damage items, and then if somebody's like killing you very, very early on, obviously you just skip the crit, you get you'd get the weapon damage, and then you'd go for the health increase. And then damage reduction, for example, well, health increase, the HP increase, and the headshot damage reduction. So again, in order for us to build effectively, there is not a specific build path. We have to analyze what the enemy's tendencies are in the game, and then what works best in conjunction with whatever the enemy is doing, because we want to counter them. We want to survive when there is the need to survive. We want to be greedy and prioritize damage when we have the room to do so. We want to prioritize regen if we're fucking staying like long on the lane. You get the point. If you don't, then I'm going to have another video to explain this more in depth and give you specific scenarios, but I think that you should be able to get this, but you should be able to get it because you're at this stage, the intermediate stage. So you've played the game already, you kind of understand how things are going on. But then again, if you don't, then that is no problem. Just write a comment and then I will like do a game commentary, specifically focusing on the items in the build path. But that is kind of the gist of it when it comes to items and what kind of are good for. And the next one is going to be, I guess the next one is going to be guns, and then specific items and build paths, just like the beginner one, but it's just going to have a bit more options, let's say. So thanks for watching, hope you liked it, see you next one.